Hello, hello. It's so good to be here and talk about something with you all that I am ridiculously passionate about. There it is. I was like, there's so many screens. I don't know where she is. So the Angular Renaissance was not coined by me, but I did claim it for my own. And I'm very excited to talk about some of the features that the Angular team has presented and is currently rolling out and plans to roll out, because there's so many of them. So I hope you get excited with me as we go into this. This talk was originally an hour talk, so if I ever seem like I'm speeding through a subject, it's just to squeeze it all in. But the Renaissance was, the original one was spanning from the 14th to the 17th century, and it was characterized by a renewed interest in classical learning and the arts. It was a time of great innovation, creativity, and advancements in fields like literature, philosophy, art, science, and my favorite, technology. So when I was thinking of the Renaissance was, this time of great progress, but it actually focused, one of its defining features was that its focus was on the humanist movement, which emphasized the importance of individual achievement and human potential. So if you're thinking, what gives her a right to call this an Angular Renaissance? It's because I believe that all of the features we're going to talk about today, and that you'll actually get to see even more very soon when they announce V17, all of these features that we're witnessing unfold have the same emphasis, and it's on this potential and this growth, and it's this, like, the DX, the people using the actual product, their experience with it, and how that can honestly be advanced and eased in some areas. So I'm very, very excited about it. Let me get my water. Okay. So, since 2016, and was anybody there for version 2.0 when it was announced? No? I was like front row, and they were announcing 2.0, and they had all these tombstones come up on stage, and they're like, rip this feature, rip that feature, and I was like, I think I actually cried a little bit, because I was just like, you're killing off my Angular. So since that time, Angular has not seen such a rapid flux of just new features that are quite exciting. Unlike that time, however, the Angular team since has made a promise to this steadiness in the language and the framework. And so I just want to assure you, and we'll talk about this at the end, but they are very aware that was jarring for the community and not a pleasant experience. And so everything going forward is opt-in, and they're extremely interested in community feedback. Do you like this syntax? Do you like this feature? Is this the direction the framework should be going? They really do want to know. And we'll talk about the RFCs in a bit. So there's a couple of parts. I'm going to skip to this one. These are the three main bits we're going to cover today in our session. Standalone and the API, the Standalone API, which is the exact same thing as saying module-less, which is not easy to say. Getting rid of modules, signals, and control flow. There are actually other things outside of these, but these are the ones we're going to focus on today. All right. And of course, I just want to mention, I will be recapping our mindset going forward, because there are a lot of people who've come up to me after this talk with concerns, because it's too fast, it's too much change, it's worrisome. And so I do see those signals, and we'll talk about them in a bit. But right now, let's talk about these signals. So one of my favorite topics is Angular built-in reactive solution called signals. And apparently, signals aren't an Angular thing. Like, whenever the team announced it, I was like, well, that's cool. That's a cool invention. And then I think it might have been some of my .NET friends, and they were like, this isn't new. This idea is not new. So maybe you're like me, and this concept is new, so let me define it for you. Signals are the Angular's team suggestion for built-in reactivity. And I think we have a lot of buzzwords in our community. This might not come as a shock to you. We're very buzzy. So what is reactivity? Let's define it real quick so that you understand what a built-in solution for that would even mean. What do I mean? So in JavaScript, when we run something like this, does anybody know what C is going to be? What that console log will be? It's very simple. I'm not trying to trick you. Yes. Shout it out. What's C? 3. She gets it right. We're gonna crank it up a notch though. So let's see if you can do it. All right. So we're still setting A to 1. We're still setting B to 2. Still combining those two. However, before the second console log, we're changing the value of A. This is JavaScript. Does anybody know what JavaScript is going to console log on the second one? 3. Right. And there you go. This is what I'm talking about, right? Because you don't have, this is whenever, so the first console log is 3, the second console log is 3. JavaScript doesn't care that you redefined A, C ran, and now it's console logging, it's giving you that number. And if you know JavaScript, if you've done JavaScript, you're not alarmed by this. You're like, yes, that's how it works. But this is why we reach, this and many other reasons, is why we reach for frameworks, because they have built-in solutions for this. You can do it natively, obviously. Everything is built with JavaScript. But this is why we reach for reactivity, or for frameworks, is because gone are the days when a website can just sit there and look pretty, right? We want interactions. When I click on this thing, this other thing updates, and I see it live. Anybody write Angular? No? Yes? Ooh, juicy. That was like 45%. 45% of you write Angular. So those 45%, I bet most of you are familiar with the combination of observables and on push. This is the current way that we handle reactivity in Angular properly, the community standard, right? We'll reach for an observable. Now, observables, with all things inside of Zone.js, come with a cost. Does anybody know what that cost is? Change detection. So why am I explaining this? Why are we going back to the basics? It is hard to understand why when I'm having a bad day, I can sit there and smile because signals are coming. It's hard to understand why that brings me so much joy unless you understand the pain points that the community has gone through and is going through to get here, right? So I'm just trying to give you a little bit of backstory. So I'm going to speed through this part, but change detection runs in cycles from the top down. It's checking all of the bound data in all of the components. And depending on how beefy your application is, that could be pretty slow. I mean, can you imagine some larger applications that have children of children of children, and it makes sense why change detection is chunky and why it's slow. Now, Zone.js uses monkey patching to extend JavaScript objects, such as window or document, and it modifies these standard constructs so that it knows when events have ran. What's wrong with Zone.js? Why do we hate Zone.js? Some people are very married to Zone.js. Like, be careful. If you go out there in the community and be like, yeah, we're going to get rid of Zone.js, some people might mug you. I don't know why. They just take it very personally, because I was out there and I was like, yeah, no more Zone.js. And they're like, Zone.js had its place and its purpose and it did its thing. And I'm like, and now it's gone, right? Like, so there are many reasons that people don't just love Zone.js. I'm going to bump through them. Black magic being one of them. Modified JavaScript objects, like we talked about. The errors because of that and other reasons are very difficult to read. It sneaks promises into our code. Did anybody else know that? When I found that out, I was like, how dare you? Yeah, so it's actually, Zone.js, it can't monkey patch async and await because they're keywords. So the CLI still converts these statements into promises, even though they're all supported in the browser already as like async and await. So yes, there are problems with Zone.js, and we are all aware of it. And I made this, all of these slides, this is like my mental note. I used AI to generate the images, and I had to like massage them. And this one was really, really hard to, I was like, to get this meme, and it's obviously still not right. But this is essentially what's happening, right? And this is my homage back to 2.0, RIP Zone.js. So Zone.js has its problems, and it causes Angular apps to be chunky, and it is a cost that we pay with observables and onPush currently. In order to get rid of Zone.js, eventually one day fully, we need a built-in solution like Signals. Something like this had to happen if we were ever going to move on. So yes, I have a stack blitz, that's the word. So you can snip it if you want to play along with us. And let's see, what time are we at? 32, we started at 20, so we're halfway through. I'm gonna show you it really, really quickly. Quicker than you've ever looked at anything in your life. All right, let's see. Just because I really think it's definitely, it's up there. It's in the top coolest things you'll probably ever get to. I'm kidding. All right, let's pull this over to, one sec, I'm setting you down. Is this one on? Excellent. Kind of, maybe. All right, pulling this over here. Oh, right, you can kind of see her. Kind of. All right, Mousy, do me good. And full screen, and hide that. Did it hide it? Actually, we want the preview up too. Can we have both? Both! Excellent, all right. Why are you being so weird? So I use Arc. It's an amazing browser. One of its only flaws is Command S is how you bring the sidebar in and out. And so in Stack Blitz, it's like, yeah, I saved it. And I'm like, Marr! So it's fine. You gotta love when hotkeys override. So this example is me showing what we were talking about before with the reactivity. And just to kind of show you, I'm over there. I'm like, where's my code? I'm gonna just do a scrolly scroll. And do we need to make the code bigger? Front row says no. It's the back row I care about. And they're just doing this. Maybe they don't like signals. Okay, so this first one is with variables, and you can see that A is equal to A, and we're just printing it, B is equal to B. Not very exciting stuff. Let's go down and see the goods. So here in the ABC example, it's variables. E, F, G are set to signals. And you can see that we're doing a little computed on G. So this is how you're going to set your signals to something else, how you're combining them, and you're getting that computed out of there. And so when I hit, am I coming through both? Can we like turn him off? Thank you, sorry. I get distracted with the feedback. Okay, so whenever I hit the button should call change, and it's gonna set an A++, and this is my more complex example that I usually ease into, so I apologize. But we're essentially upping both A and E whenever I hit the button. If I can find it, can she do it? All right. Why did I make this example so complex? Just so I could hit the button over and over again and you could see what was happening. So E and F, right, that's changing. And so it's just built-in reactivity, right? Could you do this another way? Obviously. Could you use observables and on-change and do it the same way you've been doing it? Yes, but you're paying the cost with change detection in Zone.js. And so that's why this built-in reactivity is happening. We're gonna go back to the slides though, because there's a lot of questions around this now. You're like, cool, that's great. But what am I to do? What am I to do, Alyssa? All right, one sec, I'm gonna do this, full screen. Okay. So, I'm gonna walk you through the anatomy real quick, and then we're gonna talk about when and where you should use these signals. And then we've got to get on to our other two topics. So with tools like signals, it knows exactly who needs to be changed. And I talked with Mark Thompson about this on a podcast recently, because I believe it's getting rid of change detection. And he said, this is semantics, and we can't get rid of that term in the community because there's still something being updated. But it is getting rid of the change detection as we know it with the costs that we are paying. So a really quick overview, because we don't have a ton of time. Creating a signal would look like this, which reading a signal, like printing it to the screen, using it in different options, looks like this in console logs, in G4s, in the double brackets, right? It's very straightforward. It gets a little bit more complicated. Setting a signal. So this sets a new value for the signal and notifies any code that is using that signal and updates it. So any template that's using it is going to be updated. However, it is a very important distinction to make that they are not streams. They are not observables. They have no concept of past values. They have a value and they have another value, right? So this is a distinction to be made and to be understood. Do I have to chuck all my observables out the window, right? The question we're all asking, no, of course not. And this is why two observable and two signal methods for interop between them are coming out. So that you can go between them, because there are more complex scenarios that obviously signals won't cover yet. I hope one day they do, but I'm also on the side of the fence. I'm a girly who would avoid like RxJS like the plague if I could. So this is to each their own. I would much rather spend my time in CSS. So there's an array of where you like to live. So, but to compute, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. As you saw in the example, the compute function can be used to create a new computed signal, and that's going to be the terminology. That's a computed signal that depends on other values, other signals. And so there we combined E and F to make a new computed signal, and we called it G. A couple things to note. Computed signals are read-only. Good Lord, that was like the slowest animation of my life. It's because of the length. You set them all to be like 0.3 seconds, but then if it's a short guy, yeah. Computed signals are changed when one or more of their inner signals are updated. Computed values are memoized. Computed values are reused after the first time. It is not going to recalculate that value over and over again, no matter where you're using it. Yes, we also saw combination methods being called on our signal in demo 2, right? That is the one I showed you. There's also effects, which I just don't have time to swap over. If you scanned that, you can uncomment, because I've got where I have a line that's using an effect. Effects are code that needs to run when a signal changes and that code has a side effect. However, I want to pull up, yeah, there it is. So you use an effect when you have code that has a side effect. And this here has a console log with E, so the console log being the side effect is going to happen. There are a couple, similar to computed, a couple of notes I wanted to make just so that you're aware. An effect, it does not set new values to any signal. It can't do that. It runs anytime one or more of its inner signal changes, similar to computed. And you're like, okay, what is this? What is this for? This is for logging and external APIs. And the team has heavily warned people, you can get yourself in trouble with effects and with performance. So please be careful and just know what you're doing. It's like one of our speakers said yesterday with ARIA. It's better to not use ARIA than to use bad ARIA. It's better to not use effects than to use them badly. So that's your effect warning with signals. When to use signals. So signals in Angular 16, which when I wrote this talk in a couple of weeks, and it's actually in a couple of weeks now that we're going to get 17. So excited. They're in developer preview right now. They are integrated into the existing change detection model, and they will mark on push components for check, similar to the async pipe. So you can use them right now if you'd like. And yes, so I mentioned this already, when to use those two. We're buzzing right along. Signals are solving problems. We get to say goodbye to Zone.js. You get to look cool to other JavaScript developers. And we have a built-in way to reactively control our view updates, which is amazing. We're buzzing past these. One question I do get asked often, why now? Why now? With all of these, not just this. The Angular team said, does anybody remember Ivy? Like the new engine? Yeah. They said, hey, we got this new rendering engine. It's called Ivy. When it comes out, we'll get to do a lot of cool stuff. Well, now we are getting to the cool stuff, and everybody's like, why is this happening to us? So it's because we have this new rendering engine, and we get to lay out the framework in a better way, honestly, to make the framework better. But we're not making it so that it is a must. Everything is opt-in. And as the community supports or doesn't support features, the team will add on to them and build out in that direction or kill them off, right? And I love seeing the feedback and how it is a very safe way that we are growing the framework. Oh, standalone. Oh, I'm so excited. So, as of the current version then, standalone was stable in v15. I mention this because I believe it's important to understand it is a part of the Angular Renaissance. It was one of the first features. It's an older feature that was announced, but it's still not widely adopted or understood. So that's why it's in this slew of features. What time is it? 42, and we're going to 50. So I got a bug. Okay. Modules. So this is difficult because only half of you, 45% of you, are Angular developers. And so I don't know if the other half of you knows what modules are. So it is actually the reason why this standalone API is now an option. Because Angular is very unique in that our smallest piece is not a component. React, Vue, Quick, name it, right? Svelte. I'm sure I'm missing a very obvious one. Their smallest breakdown piece is component. But until version 15, ours was below that, and it was a module, right? They're just buckets that you put stuff in. It's just this shared pieces. But it is a unique and possibly painful, if you're new to Angular or maybe you're picking it back up, a piece to understand because nobody else does it this way, right? And so it is now an option, but as you can imagine, you've got 15 versions that use this thing, and now we're removing it. It's going to be a little bit like, okay, what are we doing in the interim? How are we getting there? So yes, this was the Angular team. In the words of the Angular team, Angular is one of the only web frameworks where components are not the units of reuse. Having Angular conceptually centered around ng module has a significant impact on the developer experience. It does. It really does. So that's one of the big reasons to remove it. There are a lot of other reasons, and if you're an Angular person, this list is needed. If you're not an Angular person, you're like, yeah, get rid of modules. But if you're like me, I was like, you can't have them. They're my modules, right? I was hurt. So there are a lot of really good bonuses to jumping on board to standalone. Architecture simplification. It simplifies the mental model of Angular, and it makes it more approachable for beginners. It really, really does. Because imagine, like, okay, you got to spin up your application, you got to make it component, but wait, do you got your module all set up? Did you know about that piece? It's just this extra bit in the mental model of Angular. It enables things like fine-grained lazy loading for components and directives, a better developer experience, and Angular tooling processes code more efficiently because it's just one less thing to worry about in the hierarchy. There are two sides to this coin, and I like to mention it. It's getting better, but there are individual modules for things like components, directives, and pipes. There is also your app module. I don't know if you've tried to remove your application module, but it is hella painful if your app is any significant size at all, because a lot of dependencies still don't support it. It's getting better though, especially as we enter into 17. I think the community is more and more supporting it. But if you're thinking about using the standalone API and you want to give it a try, I would absolutely recommend it. Go pick out a component, pick out a directive, and go to it, remove its module, ship it, put it in production. You can live happily. But your app module, that I would wait until the community is just a little bit more stable, but it's coming. It truly is. I think I have so this is how you generate a brand new application with just the -- standalone flag. Yes, yeah, if you'd like to try standalone applications, you need to ensure you're on the latest CLI, which makes sense, because I updated my Angular, and then it was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh, the CLI, duh. So just note. npm install, yes. So we are gonna chug, because we have 4 minutes. But Modulus Angular, I wanted to recap for you real quick. Simpler to use, easier to reason about. It's less verbose to write, and Angular is faster to compile. And that faster to compile thing, that is super, super exciting because I think everything around Angular, like things that I can't talk about, things that are coming out, and things that we have right now that we can use, it's all pointing to a better developer experience, but then also a better user experience. It's going to be cool, and it's going to be fast. So the more of these features that you can get on board with, because again, they're optional. They're not forcing them on you, and they're not kicking you into something or kicking you off of something. But the more of these features that you can adopt, and just adopt them in small ways, the better your Angular app is going to get, the better your experience is going to get, and the better your user's experience is going to get. Because the future of Angular is freaking bright. Control flow is probably one of the team is most excited about. Has anybody looked into this yet? Yeah, a little bit? I got a couple of nods. So we're going to quickly recap, because I have no time. It's the new control flow syntax is introduced in the form of blocks. And so you can have conditional control flow with keywords like if and else, and I'm gonna whiz-biz through this, but you have like if, else, switch. These screenshots were taken from the RFC, so the syntax is still in flux, and I actually think even in 17, the syntax could still be in flux, but that's not what's important. Like if we get, because I think at one point they were like, should we have the bang, should we have the at for like the denotation? But that's not important, because what it is giving us is the power to have these things, and mainly defer, quite frankly. Defer is one of the most exciting things. It is allowing you, and I'm going to go to the very end, because I plopped this in. Oh, she's tiny. One sec. Why are you so tiny? Okay, it's not going to let me edit it. I guess it's kind of readable. But essentially what's happening here is the control flow has ifs, else, switches, which is all great. It's in your template. But it also has defer. And defer is one of the freaking coolest things ever. Because here, you're deferring a chunk, a little piece of your template from loading. And then instead of having to say, you even have things like minimums, right? Where you can say, and do this thing after this much time. And then you're specifying loading spinners and errors, and it's all right here, all of this logic. It's super duper powerful. And it's actually going to open the doors for some really cool performance things. Again, there's a lot. There's so much. I am so excited for this Angular Renaissance. I have 1 minute to tell you about the developer mindset, so I'm going to tell you a story. I love cycling. I love it. I recently started going out in a Peloton with a group of people, and I learned that there's hand signals. Did you all know there's hand signals? They've got this secret language. One of the scariest hand signals you can be shown is the one I'm showing on my bike, which is gravel. Gravel can take out a single rider, which can take out the entire Peloton and really, 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 really cause injuries. So when you see this, you slow down. Unfortunately, because I am a developer and I am a gamer, I have carpal tunnel syndrome, and I've even had the surgery, but I still have the symptoms. So when I am cycling for a really long time, 2, 3, 5 hours, my hands get numb. Numb hands mean I can't pull the brake, I can't feel the gears. So I do this. If the guy behind me doesn't know that I have carpal tunnel syndrome, he's taking my carpal tunnel for everybody needs to slow down, we're all about to die, right? So I just want to tell you, because I have gotten this feedback, and I mentioned I've gotten this feedback, because I'm so excited about what Angular is doing. It is the right move for Angular, it's the right move for this community, and there's going to be a fire lit in Angular. But there are people who are worried, and I understand. Things have been promised before in our community, from whether it's from .NET, whether it's from JavaScript, and they've been taken away. Things have fallen through, they don't work out. Why should I trust this? And I am telling you right now, that you are reading this, right? You're reading, hey, it's carpal tunnel, it's growing pains. It's not something to fear. This is exciting, and the team cares about the community, and they're never going to rip the rug out from under us again. So I'm really, really pumped about this. I went over time, and I apologize for that. Please come talk to me afterwards if you want to duke it out about some Angular features, but thank you for your time.